Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have with us once again Mr. Harry Gross, a young savant rising in the world as he considers the destiny of mankind. So that's quite a task. Well, we talked about a number of things, and tonight possibly we could talk about intelligence agencies. There's certainly a lot of them out there. And if you look at the way Hollywood has portrayed them, going back to different movies or shows, the idea is the intelligence agencies often have their own separate government, and they may be manipulating everyone for some unknowable ends, and they successfully do this. And so at least that's at least one thought about that. And the question would be, do intelligence agencies, for reasons that are not knowable, particularly to an external observer, do they manipulate the data that they present to the executive branch and to the American people? Or in other countries, do they do that? Is there something going on back and forth between what's really happening? And I think instinctively, the American people have trusted their intelligence agencies. I think instinctively they had. They were, particularly in the Cold War or fighting the Nazis, World War II. Or the idea was that J. Edgar Hoover, after the war, the CIA, they were like American knighthood. And they were protecting American interests, heroically so. And they were in these emotional, intellectual duels with our opposition, and they were our team, and and so whatever they said, people believed. And I remember one day I was playing basketball with some neighbors. Maybe this is, I think, 1958, or shooting hooks or whatever. I wasn't very good, but trying to get a basket or two, and we were discussing the U2 event. And so my friend said, "Did you hear the Russians shot down one of our weather planes? Isn't that just like them?" And so the U.S. put these lies out, just basically to say what was up. And indeed, at different times, that happens. And so if you're a plebeian American, you're out there, drinking beer and watching television, and the news comes on, and there may be some story about one of our enemies doing something or something bad, and so we would just accept that. And that's often not the national interest. Another example would be in the war against Saddam Hussein. If you remember that, I do, I remember it. The intelligence agencies just lined up to say that there's no question about it. There are nuclear weapons there. All these things are going. All kinds of stories were out there, and in fact, that was not the case. And the whole geopolitical structure of the world was changed because of that decision, or the information that was presented to our decision makers. This is the story. This is not. And a question would be, can we really trust what the intelligence agencies say? Is there some mechanism by which things are monitored and protected? And another thing that sometimes happens is the intelligence agencies do things to people. They sometimes kill them, I would say that occasionally, but they certainly can do things on warrants. They can wiretap, they can do this, they can do that, and allegedly there's some kind of mechanism in place to prevent that. But not, I would say, not too well. So it's kind of a spooky situation as how this system has evolved, and I would say the substantial problem is that the oversight is extremely shaky. They're really a shaky oversight. There's a huge amount of funds that go into their coffers. And can one really say what they're up to? What are they doing? Is it in the national interest? Are they presenting correct information? Are they doing some devilish things that most people would not approve of? Are these things going on? We've got involvement of the countries in Chile, Allende there, whatever, all the stories, what's the CIA doing? Or, as far as that goes, in Italy, right after World War II, I'd say the Socialist Communist Alliance was going to win the election, and then the CIA came in and basically turned things around. So these events are taking place repeatedly around the world with the intelligence agencies doing whatever they wish, in a way. Now one, and I'll turn it over to you about now, is that one of the things that's happened extraordinarily so is the whole deal with the Russian collusion arrangement with Trump. That whole story with that. And the deal was he absolutely did it. And the intelligence agents said this is what's happening. They did that, and he needs to be impeached or he needs to go out of office because of that. The thought being that if our enemies are going to support someone, then that takes away the right to be elected, and of course that's a extremely common event. There's, I think, every foreign embassy in the country, everybody that's a dual citizen, everybody that has an interest in, I don't know, in tangerine production in Argentina, whatever to name something. I want to get that across, and so they're lobbyists. They're doing this. They're doing that. People in politics are being paid off by these agencies. They're doing this, and they often may present different kinds of information that may or may not be correct. And certainly this is true in the Middle East, where the Israeli lobbying group is extremely powerful, as others are. But that's one pretty good example. And of course, they would say, well, the other side is more powerful or as powerful, the Islamic world. So we have all this tussling going on, all these events are out there. And the idea is that the campaign against President Trump was a political arrangement. It was corrupt. The people that signed up on it were corrupt, and the people that were in the interstices of the intelligence agencies were really hacks and Trump would say, for the Democratic Party, et cetera. And now we have the other situation that's going on. So the President Intelligence Agency is now investigating whatever the other side is up to and what they're doing. And they're taking huge steps to counter this, at least their viewpoint. And the evidence that's being produced is pretty secret and pretty not knowable. Also, what often happens in these disputes would be the big deal is just getting the headline. Just the headline, no, not so much the facts. So, I don't know, Putin sent Trump I don't know, a fifth of whiskey after he did whatever he did there. Or President Biden is whatever, under the thrall of the Chinese, whatever the story is. And the question to ask is, what does the American public do about this? Is there a solution to this? And should we discount almost anything that's said to us by an intelligence agency? Is that a step too far? You have comments?
I think it's a step too far to discount everything that's said. Intelligence agencies have to walk a very fine line between deception and truth. If they're not, the whole purpose of intelligence is to gather accurate information about your enemies and your allies, even about everyone around you, to better inform your decision-making calculus, right? What is going on around the world with other people and to get a sense of what's happening so that I can make the proper decisions to react to that. At the same time, espionage is it depends deeply on secrecy, right? If your source is exposed, if people know you're being spied on, you get limited intelligence from that. It limits the effectiveness. So everything becomes cloaked in this air of denial, right? Even things that, like, I've had a CIA agent lie to my face about something that I know for a fact is true. I have laid eyes on on things, and he told me that what I saw with my own eyes was not there. And because their motto is deny, deny, deny. That's how you survive in the world of intelligence. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have gotten false information. Now, there are failures. There are obvious failures that occur. Intelligence, particularly human intelligence, is always going to be fallible. But there is always a grain of truth hidden somewhere. The problem with American intelligence services, this is actually the problem with all intelligence services, but American intelligence services have been uniquely exposed to this because of the publicity surrounding them. They're often directed heavily by the egos of those in charge. They're very top-down organizations. They don't work well. There's not a lot of individual agency granted across certain parts. If you're a field agent, you have some agency because obviously you have to blend in. You have a mission to complete. But if you're just an analyst, you don't get a lot of leeway on what do you get to do with that information. You just pass stuff up the chain. And the person above you decides what happens with that. A lot of our policy in the 1950s and 60s was driven by the egos of the Dulles brothers at that point. John Foster and Allen, Foster at State and Allen at CIA, were acting in ways that comported primarily with their worldview and not necessarily with the preferences of the government. JFK and Allen Dulles frequently clashed. JFK wanted the CIA disbanded when he came into office, which is one of the roots of that conspiracy. The CIA had him killed at that point. There's always been clashes. Intelligence agencies in America historically have had a lot of leeway, particularly the CIA, until there was some serious restructuring after Watergate, where the CIA was basically said, you are only allowed to do foreign intelligence gathering. You cannot spy on Americans and American soil. That was left to the FBI. And then after 9/11 and the serious intelligence failures that brought that about, there was a complete restructuring of the intelligence community. There's something like 19, I think, intelligence agencies in the United States. Ranging from Army intelligence, Navy intelligence, to the Geospatial Intelligence Agency that does all of our satellite imagery, to the CIA. And those were all brought under one single head, the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI. And they're the final word. They get to say what their priorities are for intelligence. They're the ones who review everything before it comes to the president. But that job is handpicked by the president as well, right? So there's some executive authority being exercised over there.
More than a little.
More than a little. But, I mean, there's also some things of, intelligence is also good in terms of where you put out false information in terms of shaping public opinion. That is a role of intelligence. There is value to lying to people. There is value to shaping a narrative around. It was in the CIA's interest in the 60s, 70s, throughout the Cold War, to show themselves as kind of these James Bond figures, right? It's James Bond,
yes.
For MI6, in the sense that, going toe-to-toe with KGB agents and DGI guys and all sorts of stuff, the enemies of the people, and we're smarter and better looking and we get better women and all of this stuff, yes. Right? And in reality, most intelligence is fairly bland. It's mostly people know who they're spying on. It's a series of trying to build relationships. You mentioned that there's always, in the sense of with Trump and this idea of compromat, right? That he's not alone in politicians having foreign influence on them.
Yes.
Absolutely not. Every intelligence agency around the world, friendly and hostile, wants to have people in an administration, right? They want to know, so they want to have leverage over figures to influence them to do what they want to do. I think it's pretty solid that Trump just got caught doing stuff by the wrong people. In the sense that the FSB surely has stuff on him that MI6 doesn't, because it was done in Moscow. That kind of stuff. And Trump's ego makes him uniquely susceptible to certain things.
Well, I mean,
as to whether it's a Democratic hoax, I would say that I don't think of Langley as a Democratic bastion. I don't know, and I really don't know very many liberal intelligence officers, for the most part.
Well,
across the board.
it depends on when they came in. You know, back in the Eisenhower day, you're getting one type of person.
Yeah, and there's
You're
totally different
getting- you're
meanings to
getting
liberal
Yale's
and
from there,
conservative,
right,
but
and
but
another-
still, the intelligence agencies are not bastions of the Democratic Party.
Well, it's hard to say, and which brings no. I'll say this. So, in other words, it's such an unknowable situation that I don't know if people have done this, or they've done that, or they've done a sociological review, or how is this going on at Harvard Business School, looking it over. Maybe they have, but it's not intrinsically obvious.
Yeah.
But I think the big question that comes out of this is that are intelligence agencies compatible with the democratic system? I mean, that seems to be the clash that's going on if you consider it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at American history, this stuff that's happening now, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? And the other thing that it also brings this question up is that many times countries can be disturbed, their political system can be disturbed by different maneuvers that might help another country. Whatever, I mean, for instance, if the country sort of fell apart, they were fighting, there was a civil war here, then it would be hard for the U.S. to protect Taiwan, let's say that. They couldn't protect Taiwan. So there are things happening, so countries want this to happen, want that to happen. And the spear by which this occurs is the CIA, which I think is their symbol, I believe. I could be wrong. Is the spear, maybe I'm wrong. But something like that.
It's an eagle. Still, but it's very similar to the presidential
Well,
seal.
the eagles are there everywhere. They're the national
Yeah.
bird, so to speak. I don't know. I'll let it go at that. But the takeaway message is these events are occurring everywhere, and each country is attempting to influence the other. And because we're the big dog country, we're just loaded with people that do things, particularly dual citizens. But we have thousands of millions of dual citizens here that have an interest, some extra national interest. Now, how big it is or how little it is another matter, but it would be reasonable if you're from Ireland, shall we say, you grew up in Ireland, you go back a lot, you like Guinness, you drink Guinness, and you want the U.S. to be friends with Ireland, or whatever, you'd like free trade, for instance, between the two. If you could do something, you would do it. Or if you're, let's say you're Irish, I'm picking on the Irish here, and the U.S. is going to back Britain in World War II, and yet the Brits have injured the Irish people for centuries, and you would not like to see Britain prevail, or many people might say that. Therefore, I will do what I can to injure the U.S.-British relationship. And the complexities of that are going on all the time as to what's up, and the question is, how powerful is this? So right now, I mean, I think it's a pretty interesting story that if Trump said that he was maligned by the Democratic Party, they put this conspiracy, and they impeached him for it. They stopped all his efforts at governing because of these claims that were out there, and he's saying now it's a pretty extraordinary charge that and of course, many people play the paranoid game. There's a famous, Hofstadter's famous book, Paranoid Style, or essay, Paranoid Style in American Politics. Paranoia, this is doing that. And it's certainly out there right now with the way that Trump believes things, and also the Democrats. But somebody tried to get me here, and if you look at what's going on here, he's really trying to control or possibly injure people that he believes have given him a nip. It's not exactly a good sport about these things.
I would give all of this more credence if this happened 8 years ago when all of these allegations supposedly occurred.
Yes.
The fact that it's being drug up this late on his second term in office,
Right.
To me, this is just distract. This is flash. This is nothing. There's no reason
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it sounds...
This is key jangling at its finest.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll say this. If in fact, when this happened, this pretty extraordinary story, which I don't totally recollect. But it seems to me it was implanted in my head that the Russians had, that Trump was their agent. He was the third man.
Yes.
So Trump was a Russian agent. They were in the pay of Moscow for whatever deal.
I don't think he was in the pay of Moscow, but there were allegations of a significant dossier of compromise possessed by the FSB on Trump. And that had been utilized in terms of business arrangements, and the fear was that would be utilized to affect U.S. policy.
I'll just make this comment. I think that Trump, I'm assuming he's been in Moscow, and it was what can one say about it?
His first wife was Russian, or his second wife was Russian.
Croatian,
second wife.
I thought, Croatian.
The
present wife.
The present wife is Slovenian, and the second wife, I think, was Russian.
Okay, maybe so.
But
really, well,
he spent a lot of time in Moscow in the 90s.
Certainly something could have happened.
Certainly something did happen.
Something could have happened. But having said that, I mean, he may be wise enough. So I think most people that would, whatever I know, if they go there, they're plutocrats, they're in Moscow or wherever, or anywhere, any big city is a plutocrat. That's just, you just have to protect yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the rule is when you go to a country like Russia, you always should assume you're being spied on.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in Cuba, and rule number one, you're being spied on.
Right.
I know every phone call I've ever made has been listened in on. Right. Sometimes you can even hear the click when the recording starts.
Right.
You know that, I mean, you have to be very careful in these situations, and being careless results in people getting compromised.
Right. Well, I'll go past that, but my comment is that that story was an extraordinary, huge atomic bomb, nuclear weapon against Trump. Mm-hmm. The whole story was a nuclear weapon.
In an election that he won, by the way.
Who won?
Trump won.
Right.
This is 2016 that all of these allegations are related to.
Okay, but nevertheless, it was just, there's been, I don't know how many impeachment trials, and one story after one story.
There were 3 impeachment trials. The first one failed. The second 2 both succeeded, and those were over something totally different. Those were over Ukraine.
I know that, but it was part of the shotgun that was going on there. They just shoot the shotgun at the guy. I think.
Well, they were 4 years apart.
Well, nevertheless, there were shotguns going back and forth. There were committee hearings, there were TV shows. So and just to go through it, obviously, I think it's fair to say, like many people, Trump is can't cast the first stone. I mean, he's certainly full of sin. I think one can say that. I don't know if he'd take offense to that comment. He's certainly sinned in his life quite a bit, I would say, but as have had many people, particularly politicians. But we're in this situation where the question I have is, Trump, I mentioned the paranoid stuff and on and on. It does appear to me that all of the smoke and fire directed against Trump, I mean, the fact, well, he probably had a girlfriend, and well, okay, probably he did, and probably the number of the number of politicians that have been anywhere, whether it's in Moscow or wherever they've been, Paris, wherever they've been. The Deuxième Bureau in France. At least some of my friends that are in they're in the State Department. They've encountered issues, and that's pretty routine from the different intelligence agencies that do that. I guess I can tell one story is that. Famously, the CIA is on the lookout for young ladies, students that have gone to Rome or Florence. They often do that, and they're there for a year abroad or whatever. The foreign intelligence agencies are there, having I guess what the right word would be, an attractive male figure, to compromise these young ladies, and then persuade them to work for their intelligence agency, and then. The CIA is very suspicious, or anyone that went to Rome majoring in I don't know, fine arts, and they returned, and they changed their major to government, something like that. I mean, so that's. But I mean, these little stories like that, maybe they're apocryphal, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and the method, the machinery by which it will influence national policy as of consequence.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that, I made the comment earlier, democracy and intelligence agencies, that's a problem, because you can't, if there's an effort out there to discredit someone, and it's impossible to get to the facts, you can never get to the facts. There's just allegations, and it's politically very damaging, and so that's what's happening. And contrary-wise, what's going on now is that I think President Trump is attacking former President Obama, saying, who's sort of I think in the Democratic Party, really quite of a saintly figure, whatever, a model of rectitude and whatever you want to say. So it really quite besmirches him to say that this is what's going on, and yet this is being investigated. It's going back and forth, and just to make an allegation is enough to politically injure someone. And these allegations are flying back and forth. Where are they coming from? Often from, I would say, intelligence agencies who can swerve off the road.
Well, I would say that the reason this is coming up now and not 8 years ago when it was actually relevant and would have been reasonable is that the heads of the intelligence agencies 8 years ago were career intelligence officers who took their jobs seriously. The heads of our intelligence agency today are not.
Well, I'll ask that question. I mean, I thought you said, and it'd be my thought too, the head guy was an appointee. Mm-hmm. So at least, and maybe this is like military generals. Mm-hmm. So once you become a general or get there, the flag officer, I think this is a fair statement. You're in another issue there, and you go into the political world. So you want to be, let's say you want to become a general. And you have an interview with different kinds of people and different thoughts, and the politicians are sort of seeking you out a little bit. You know, what do you think? Do you want to put a big aircraft factory in, I don't know, South Dakota? Do you want to do that? Or do you back our woke country? I think this is fair. So, I think it is. I really do.
I fundamentally disagree with my experience of the officers I've known. Promotion was firmly based on merit and longevity.
This is not, no. This is up to be general. This is not being a lieutenant colonel. All that's fine. But once you go to the highest level, where you start to encounter politicians,
because those have to be approved by the Senate. Yes, those promotions require Senate approval most of the time.
Often they do. That's right. But along with that, they also have to sort of kibitz a little bit with what do you think about this? Yeah. What do you think about that? So I mean, and so the same thing, I believe, would go on with people that are making their way up in the intelligence world. That they to get promoted, which is probably quite a complicated thing to do, is how you get promotions, and it requires sort of a sociological study.
Sometimes, but the agencies themselves have certain cultures that promotions determine. The State Department, you don't get promoted if you're not Foreign Service. It doesn't matter what you do, Foreign Service is the way that you want to go. In the CIA, you don't get promoted unless you do foreign operations as well, typically field operations.
Well, you could say generally that's the case. It would be like.
No, I mean that's what I've been told.
If you become an admiral, I mean, it's sort of like you want to become an admiral, you need sea duty, or if you want to be a general, you have to get some combat experience.
Exactly.
That's
right.
You so don't people do something with that.
And so, but the issue though, what I'm trying to say here is that the first Trump term was he picked career people to be heads. Now, they were usually politically aligned with him. For the most part, they had impressive resumes in their fields.
Many did, I remember that.
Very few of the agency heads in this administration have those same bona fides.
You know, I think
they are much more politically aligned with him, and they're much more willing to be political stooges, is what I'm saying. That intelligence agencies, I would say, are being subverted and used for political purposes domestically in ways that they have no business being used, and in ways that I think is detrimental not just to their mission and their efficacy, but to the status of the United States as a whole.
Right. Well, I will conclude here on this comment. So I think it is true that there's a very sycophantic response to President Trump by anyone that's in his administration, pretty much. That's been my observation. And that was not the case in his first administration. because many reputable people got into terrible quarrels with him, and they were fired, going back and forth. It's pretty unusual to see that happen now, and I believe that's a substantial change in policy, meaning that the checks and balances that would be there earlier by administration, by the deep state, has changed. So I think you could say, is that good or is that bad? Whatever. If you're the executive, the boundary between executive power and administrative staff can be moved. It can be legally be moved. There are limits to it, but that seems to be what's happening. And I'll conclude by saying that President Trump is directing the country in directions that it hasn't traveled before. There may be some good in it, but one this needs to be very carefully observed, because the governmental system is being substantially altered, maybe only for a short time. But we'll be on the lookout for that. Well, thank you, Harry. Thanks for your appearance.
Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you here.
Always a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thanks.